I still remember the moment he smiled, tossing the paper onto the table like it was nothing more than a joke. Not enough fire, not enough energy. I just stared at the round figure in front of me and knew. Right then and there, everything had changed. They thought I'd stay silent. They thought I'd accept defeat. But they forgot one thing. I held something this entire empire couldn't replace, something that would bring their glass tower crashing down around them. And unlike them, I knew exactly how to use it. My name is Madeline Grant, and for 5 years, I'd built something extraordinary at Helix and Capital. As head of client strategy, I'd transformed our VIP portfolio from a scattered mess into a $73 million machine. Every relationship, every framework, every strategic insight, I'd crafted them all from scratch. But none of that mattered on that Tuesday morning in March when Ryan Mercer decided to make an example of me. The quarterly review meeting started at 9:30 sharp. I'd arrived at 9, as always, setting up my presentation materials in Conference Room A, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Denver. The Rockies stood magnificent in the distance, still capped with snow. I remember thinking how peaceful everything looked from the 32nd floor, how wrong I was. Ryan strutted in at 9:28, designer suit impeccable, that practiced smile plastered across his face. 6 months. That's all it had taken for the CEO's nephew to climb from junior analyst to executive director of major accounts. His Harvard MBA apparently meant more than my decade of proven results. The other executives filed in behind him. Carl from compliance, Jennifer from operations, Marcus from finance. They all avoided my eyes. "Madeline," Ryan said, taking the seat directly across from me instead of his assigned spot. A power play. Ready to dazzle us with your insights. The way he said insights made my skin crawl. I straightened my shoulders and clicked to the first slide. Revenue projections, client retention rates, strategic pivots for Q2. Everything backed by data, by relationships I'd nurtured, by late nights analyzing market trends while Ryan was probably at some rooftop bar. 15 minutes in, I was hitting my stride. The numbers were undeniable. Our VIP clients had generated a 22% increase over last quarter, largely due to the personalized frameworks I'd developed. Jennifer was nodding. Marcus was taking notes. Even Carl looked impressed. Then Ryan stood up. "I'm sorry, but I have to stop you right there." He walked around the table, hands in his pockets, that infuriating smile never wavering. "This is exactly the problem with our current approach." The room went silent. My laser pointer froze midair. "These reports, these frameworks, they lack vision, they lack energy." He grabbed my printed report from the table, flipping through it dismissively. "Where's the innovation? Where's the disruption? This reads like something from 2015. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "These strategies have delivered consistent growth." Consistent isn't enough anymore. He tossed the report back onto the table, pages scattering. "What our VIP clients need is transformation, revolution, not—" He gestured vaguely at my presentation. "Paperwork. Paperwork. 5 years of strategic development, reduced to paperwork. I've been developing a complete restructure of our client approach," Ryan continued, pulling up his own presentation on his phone, casting it to the main screen without asking. My slides disappeared. "Something with actual fire, something that will elevate us into the future." His slides were all flash, animated transitions, buzzwords like synergistic elevation and dynamic client journey mapping, empty phrases dressed up in expensive graphics. But the others were leaning forward, interested. Of course they were. He was the CEO's blood. "Maybe," Ryan said, turning back to me with mock concern, "Madeline would be better suited for a more supportive role, back-end operations, data management, something that matches her skill set." The words hung in the air like poison. Back-end operations. After everything I'd built. Carl shifted uncomfortably. Jennifer stared at her notebook. Marcus cleared his throat but said nothing. Not one person defended me. Not one person mentioned that Ryan hadn't even bothered to learn our clients' names yet, let alone understand their needs. I stood slowly, gathering my materials with deliberate calm, every movement controlled, every breath measured. Ryan thought he'd won. He thought I'd crumble, maybe cry, maybe beg to keep my position. Instead, I looked him directly in the eyes, those arrogant, empty eyes, and smiled. "Thank you for the feedback, Ryan. Very illuminating." Something flickered across his face. Confusion, concern. For just a moment, his smile faltered. I walked out of that conference room with my head high, heels clicking against the marble floor in perfect rhythm. Behind me, I heard Ryan launching into his grand vision for the future of Helix and Capital, but I wasn't listening anymore. Because in that moment, staring at those scattered pages of my report, my work, my relationships, my strategies, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Ryan Mercer had just made the biggest mistake of his privileged little life. He'd underestimated me. The email arrived exactly 1 week later, at 8:45 on a Monday morning. I was halfway through my first coffee when the notification popped up. Organizational restructuring, immediate effect. Ryan's name sat boldly at the bottom, his new title gleaming Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. I read it 3 times, each word twisting deeper into my chest. Effective immediately. All VIP client accounts will transition to the newly formed Excellence team under my direct supervision. This realignment will ensure maximum value delivery and position Helix and Capital at the forefront of financial innovation. 12 clients, $73 million in managed assets, 5 years of relationships built on trust, late-night calls, birthday cards, and genuine understanding of their business needs, all of it ripped away with a single email. But Ryan wasn't done. The second paragraph outlined the optimization of human resources. My role, head of client strategy, was being dissolved. In its place, I was being promoted to senior manager of data logistics, a made-up title for a made-up position. My new responsibilities included maintaining client databases, generating reports for the Excellence team, and supporting strategic initiatives as required. Supporting. I'd gone from leading to supporting in 7 days. My phone buzzed. Text from Tina. My analyst, emergency meeting in Conference B, now. When I walked in, my entire team was there. 8 people who'd worked tirelessly beside me, who'd trusted my vision, who'd delivered extraordinary results quarter after quarter. Their faces told me everything. "We're being split up," David said, his voice flat. "I'm being transferred to Ryan's team. So are Lisa and Mark." "I'm being moved to operations," Tina added, her eyes red-rimmed. "They said it's a lateral move, but we all know what it really is." Sarah, my newest hire, just 6 months out of Wharton, looked devastated. "They're putting me on cold calls, entry-level work, after everything we accomplished." I wanted to rage, to storm into the CEO's office and demand answers, to expose Ryan for the incompetent nepotism hire he was, but I did none of that. Instead, I sat down and looked each of them in the eye. "This isn't about us," I said quietly. "This is about Ryan marking his territory. He needs to erase what we built so he can claim credit for whatever comes next." "But the clients," David started. "Won't know what hit them," I finished. "Ryan's never handled a real account in his life. He doesn't know that Morrison Industries only takes calls after 2 in the afternoon. He doesn't know that the Hartley Group requires quarterly reviews in person, not video calls. He doesn't know that Patricia Kim at Apex Solutions has a daughter with special needs and sometimes needs to reschedule at the last minute." The room fell silent. We all knew what would happen. Ryan would fail. But by then, it would be too late for us. Over the next 3 days, Ryan launched his transformation with typical fanfare, a town hall meeting where he presented his vision using terms like client journey elevation and synergistic value creation. He introduced his Excellence team, a collection of young MBAs who looked good in suits, but had never managed a relationship worth more than their student loans. He created an internal podcast called Elevate the Future, where he interviewed himself about leadership. He plastered motivational posters around our floor with his face and quotes like, "Excellence isn't a destination, it's a mindset," and "Clients first, always." But the most insulting part came during the transition meetings. I was required to hand over my files, my contacts, my everything to Ryan's team. They sat there, barely taking notes, checking their phones while I explained the intricate dynamics of each client relationship. The Williamson account requires I'd start. "We've got it covered." Bradley, Ryan's right-hand man, would interrupt. "We're implementing a new CRM system that will automate all of this. Automate relationships, automate trust, automate 5 years of human connection." On my last day with client access, I sat in my office, my former office, since I'd been moved to a cubicle on the 20th floor, and watched the sunset over Denver. My computer screen showed 12 client folders, each one representing not just revenue, but people who'd trusted me with their financial futures. Ryan appeared in my doorway at 6:30, that same practiced smile in place. "Madeline, just wanted to thank you for the smooth transition. Your documentation has been adequate." Adequate. "I'm sure you'll find your new role fulfilling," he continued. "Less pressure, more work-life balance. It's really a win-win." I smiled back, the same controlled smile I'd perfected over the years. "I'm sure everything will work out exactly as it should." "Ryan." He hesitated for a moment, perhaps sensing something beneath my words, but his ego wouldn't let him dig deeper. Why would it? He'd won. He'd taken everything. Or so he thought. As he walked away, his expensive shoes clicking against the floor, I turned back to my computer. $73 million in client assets, 12 relationships, one incompetent nephew playing CEO. The dice were cast. Ryan just didn't know he was playing my game now. The beauty of being underestimated is that no one watches you closely. While Ryan paraded around the office with his excellence team, I spent 3 careful days executing a plan that had been forming since that humiliating meeting. It started at 11:30 on a Thursday night. The office was empty except for security and the cleaning crew. I sat at my desk on the 20th floor, fingers dancing across the keyboard with surgical precision, every keystroke deliberate, every action legally bulletproof. First, the client strategy frameworks. 5 years of proprietary methodologies, algorithms I'd developed for risk assessment, personalized portfolio strategies tailored to each VIP client. I packaged them all into encrypted files, marking each one with the appropriate classification intellectual property, creator Madeline Grant. The legal department had actually encouraged this practice 2 years ago to protect Helixson's assets. They just never imagined the asset would protect itself. Next came the master database. Not just contact information, anyone could Google that. This contained the real gold personal preferences, family situations, investment triggers, psychological profiles that helped predict market behavior. Every insight gathered through hundreds of hours of conversation, observation, relationship building. I coded a new security protocol around it. Access required dual authentication, with one key being my personal signature. But the masterpiece was the service contracts. Buried in subsection 6.3b of our standard client agreement was a clause I'd insisted on 3 years ago, after a competitor had poached one of our analysts and tried to steal client strategies. The clause stated that any proprietary framework or strategic model developed by an individual employee remained their intellectual property unless explicitly transferred in writing. The company could use it, but couldn't modify, transfer, or implement it without the creator's documented consent. Carl from compliance had loved it. "Protects us from corporate espionage," he'd said, signing off without a second thought. Now, I carefully updated each client file with an addendum, flagging every custom strategy as IP protected. The system accepted it without question. Why wouldn't it? I was still, technically, senior manager of data logistics. This was literally my job. At 2:15 in the morning, I moved to Phase 2. The client communication protocols, the detailed playbooks for managing each account. Morrison Industries CEO liked his reports with executive summaries and bullet points, never paragraphs. Patricia Kim needed flexibility for her daughter's medical appointments, but would never ask for it directly. The Hartley Group's board required specific metrics that weren't in any standard template. I documented everything, then locked it behind a legal firewall so thick that even Hellickson's lawyers would need weeks to navigate it. And the beautiful part: everything I was doing was completely within company policy. I was protecting intellectual property, ensuring data security, maintaining compliance standards. Ryan's team would have access to the clients. They'd have the account numbers, the portfolios, the basic information. But they wouldn't have the map. They wouldn't have the relationships. They wouldn't have the trust. And they wouldn't even know what they were missing until it was too late. My phone buzzed at 3 a.m, a text from an unknown number, but I recognized the area code Patricia Kim's personal cell. Madeline, I heard about the restructuring. Should we be concerned? That new team seems very enthusiastic, but they don't seem to understand our unique situation. I didn't respond, not yet, but I saved the message, along with similar ones that had been trickling in all week. The clients were already nervous. They just didn't know how nervous they should be. The final phase was the most delicate. I created a comprehensive transition document, one that looked helpful on the surface. 40 pages of client information, contact schedules, meeting preferences, but every critical detail was tied to my IP-protected frameworks. Try to access the risk assessment model. You'd need my authorization, want to modify the portfolio strategy, required my signature. Need to understand why the Morrison account specifically required those bullet points, that psychological profile was proprietary. I labeled the document Transition Support Materials Confidential and sent it to Ryan's team at 5:45 in the morning, just as the early risers would be checking their emails. Bradley responded within minutes. Thanks for this. Seems overly complicated, but we'll figure it out. We're implementing a new streamlined approach anyway. Perfect. Let them try their streamlined approach. Let them discover that Morrison Industries' CEO would hang up on anyone who called before 2. Let them learn that the Hartley Group would terminate their contract if they missed a single in-person quarterly review. Let them realize that Patricia Kim's trust, once broken, would never return. I leaned back in my chair, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. Somewhere in his luxury apartment, Ryan was probably sleeping soundly, dreaming of his $73 million triumph. He had no idea he was holding an empty box. The keys to the kingdom were still in my pocket, wrapped in layers of legal protection that he'd never thought to check for. Because why would he? I was just the woman who did paperwork, the one who lacked vision, lacked energy. But I had something Ryan would never have: patience. The patience to build a trap so carefully, so legally, so completely within the rules that when it snapped shut, there would be no escape. My computer pinged, an automated message from the system. Intellectual property assets successfully archived, creator rights protected. I smiled and closed my laptop. Time to go home and wait. The real show was about to begin. Ryan's coronation happened 2 weeks later at the Summit Grand Hotel. I wasn't invited, of course, but Tina live-streamed it for me from her phone, hidden behind a centerpiece at table 12. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, ice sculptures shaped like ascending arrows. The theme, plastered on banners everywhere, was Elevating Excellence, the Future of Wealth Management. Ryan stood at the podium in a midnight blue Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Tonight marks a transformation. His voice boomed through the speakers. In just 2 weeks, we've revolutionized how Hellickson Capital approaches client relationships. We're not just managing wealth anymore, we're architecting futures. I nearly choked on my wine. Architecting futures. The man who couldn't architect a spreadsheet without 3 assistants. The audience was eating it up. CEO Charles Mercer, Uncle Charles, beamed from the head table. Board members nodded appreciatively. Marketing executives typed furiously, probably live-tweeting Ryan's empty wisdom. Our VIP portfolio is set to grow by 40% this quarter, Ryan announced. clicking to a slide showing hockey stick projections. Thanks to our new dynamic engagement protocols and AI-driven predictive modeling. AI-driven, he meant the ChatGPT subscription Bradley had expensed last week. We're moving beyond the old paradigm of reactive management, Ryan continued, his hand gestures practiced, probably coached. The excellence team doesn't just respond to client needs, we anticipate them. We don't just provide solutions, we create opportunities. Behind him, a video played, testimonials from his team about the revolutionary changes. Bradley talking about leveraging synergies. Another MBA named Preston describing holistic wealth ecosystems. Not a single actual client appeared. Because the clients weren't happy. I pulled up my personal laptop, monitoring the system through my limited access. The signs were everywhere if you knew where to look. Email response times stretching from hours to days. Meeting requests being rescheduled repeatedly. Support tickets piling up in the queue. Morrison Industries had sent 3 urgent emails about their quarterly report. All 3 forwarded to different team members. None answered. The Hartley Group's in-person review was tomorrow. Ryan's team had sent them a Zoom link instead. Patricia Kim had called the main line 4 times today. Her daughter's surgery had been rescheduled, and she needed to adjust her portfolio timeline. The calls went to voicemail. But Ryan didn't know any of this yet. He was too busy basking in manufactured glory. We've eliminated inefficiencies, he declared, streamlined operations, removed redundancies. Removed redundancies. That's what he called firing half my team and demoting the rest. And this is just the beginning. Phase 2 launches next month, a complete digital transformation. Clients will have app-based access to their portfolios, AI chatbots for 24/7 support, and automated strategy adjustments based on market algorithms. The room erupted in applause. Uncle Charles stood, leading the ovation. Champagne flutes raised in toast to the golden boy who'd saved Helixon from the dinosaurs like me who still believed in human connection. Tina's camera shook as she typed, "This is insane. He's literally describing features that every discount broker already has. These clients pay millions for personalized service, not chatbots." She was right, but the room didn't know that. They saw confidence. They saw vision. They saw the future. What they didn't see was Ryan's phone, buzzing insistently in his pocket. What they didn't see was Bradley, stepping outside repeatedly to take calls, his face growing paler each time. What they didn't see was the email that had just landed in the legal department's inbox from Morrison Industries, questioning the significant degradation in service quality. The grand finale was a live demonstration. Ryan pulled up the new client dashboard on the massive screen. Slick graphics, real-time market data, automated portfolio adjustments. It looked like something from a sci-fi movie. "Let me show you how simple we've made everything," Ryan said, clicking through menus with practiced ease. Any client can rebalance their portfolio with one click. They can access predictive modeling instantly. They can even chat with our AI advisor, we call him Maxwell, for immediate guidance. He clicked on a client profile to demonstrate Morrison Industries, the dashboard populated with numbers, charts, projections, all wrong. Every single metric was using generic market data, not the customized models I'd built specifically for their industrial manufacturing focus. But Ryan didn't know they were wrong. The audience didn't know. They saw beautiful graphics and assumed brilliance. "Questions?" Ryan asked, spreading his arms wide. An investor raised her hand. "What about the human element?" "These are $73 million in extremely high-touch clients." Ryan's smile never wavered. "The human element is enhanced, not replaced. Our excellence team provides white-glove service, but now it's backed by technology. We're not eliminating relationships, we're elevating them." More applause, more champagne, more empty promises wrapped in expensive packaging. As the party continued, I closed my laptop and poured another glass of wine. Tomorrow, the Hartley Group would receive a Zoom link instead of the in-person meeting their contract required. Patricia Kim would get an automated response to her urgent medical situation. Morrison Industries would discover their quarterly report was built on generic algorithms instead of their specialized framework. Ryan thought he was celebrating victory. In reality, he was dancing on the edge of a cliff, too drunk on his own ego to see the drop. The foundations were already cracking. He just couldn't hear them over the applause. The unraveling started on a Monday at 7:12 in the morning. I was reviewing my new assignment data entry for the operations team when Tina messaged me a screenshot from the company's Slack. Urgent Morrison Industries threatening contract termination. Legal needs all documentation now. By 8:30, the executive floor was in crisis mode. Through the gossip network, I learned Morrison's CEO had received his quarterly report, a generic template filled with market generalizations, instead of the specialized manufacturing sector analysis they'd paid premium prices for. He'd called it undergraduate-level garbage and demanded to speak with me personally. Too bad I no longer had client-facing privileges. The second domino fell before lunch. The Hartley Group's board had shown up for their in-person quarterly review at their offices in Boulder, only to receive a last-minute email canceling and offering a Zoom link instead. Their contract explicitly required face-to-face meetings. Their legal team was now involved. By Tuesday, the situation had escalated beyond damage control. Patricia Kim had liquidated her entire portfolio, $8.7 million, after the AI chatbot had responded to her urgent request about her daughter's surgery, with market volatility suggests maintaining current positions. Would you like to schedule a consultation for next quarter? Next quarter. Her daughter's brain surgery was in 3 days. I watched it all unfold from my cubicle on the 20th floor, maintaining perfect focus on my spreadsheets while the executive suite burned. Tina kept me updated with a play-by-play that read like a corporate thriller. Emergency meeting in Conference A. Ryan looks like he's going to vomit. Bradley just got screamed at by Morrison's CFO for 40 minutes. Legal is here. Carl brought 3 external lawyers. Wednesday brought the avalanche. 7 of the 12 VIP clients sent formal complaints. The remaining 5 had gone ominously silent, never a good sign with 8-figure accounts. The total at risk wasn't just the $73 million anymore. Word was spreading. Other clients were asking questions. The stock market noticed. At 2:45 that afternoon, I was summoned to Conference Room A. Not asked. Summoned. The room was a war zone. Papers scattered everywhere. Empty coffee cups lined the conference table like wounded soldiers. Ryan sat at the head, his perfect hair disheveled, his designer suit wrinkled. Bradley flanked him, laptop open, frantically typing. Carl from compliance stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. 3 lawyers I didn't recognize hunched over documents. And Uncle Charles, CEO Charles Mercer himself, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days. Madeline, Charles's voice was ice. Sit. I sat. Ryan couldn't even look at me, his jaw clenched and unclenched, a muscle twitching near his temple. We need the frameworks, Carl said without preamble. The real ones, the ones you built for each client. I folded my hands calmly. Of course, they're all in the system, clearly marked as proprietary intellectual property. You'll need my authorization to access them. Just give us the fucking password. Ryan exploded, finally meeting my eyes. His were bloodshot, desperate. It's not about a password, I replied evenly. It's about legal ownership. Those frameworks are my intellectual property. As established under Section 6.3b of our employment agreements, I'm happy to license them to Helixson, but we'll need to discuss terms. The room went silent. One of the lawyers, a sharp-looking woman with silver hair, leaned forward. You're saying the client management strategies are your personal property. Not saying, stating, it's all documented, filed with compliance, and legally binding. Carl can confirm he approved the structure himself 3 years ago. All eyes turned to Carl. He had gone pale, his phone hanging limply in his hand. She's right. We approved it as a retention strategy, to prevent employees from taking IP if they left, but it also means, he trailed off. It means, the silver-haired lawyer finished, that Helixson Capital, has been using unlicensed intellectual property to manage $73 million in client assets. If those clients find out their strategies aren't actually owned by the company they're paying, the implications hung in the air like a guillotine. Charles's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. How much? Everyone looked at me. How much for what? I asked innocently. To license your frameworks, to fix this mess. How much? I tilted my head, considering. Well, it's not just about money. These frameworks require proper implementation. They're complex, personalized systems that need someone who understands the clients, their histories, their needs. How much? Charles ground out each word. I couldn't possibly negotiate without proper representation, I said, standing. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. In the meantime, I should get back to my data entry. Those operations reports won't file themselves. As I reached the door, Ryan finally spoke. His voice was hoarse, broken. You planned this. I turned back, meeting his devastated gaze with cool professionalism. I protected my intellectual property, as any smart employee would. You're the one who decided to use it without authorization. That was your choice. Ryan, your vision. The last thing I saw before the door closed was Bradley frantically typing, trying to access the frameworks, hitting wall after wall of legal protection. $73 million, hanging by a thread that I held. And we weren't even at the fun part yet. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 in the morning. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. Tina had positioned herself as note-taker, and she live-streamed the entire disaster to me through her phone, hidden behind a stack of legal binders. The boardroom was packed, 12 board members, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Charles at the head, his usual commanding presence diminished. Ryan sat to his right, a shadow of the golden boy from his party just days ago. Carl from compliance had assembled a wall of documentation. The legal team had tripled in size. Let's cut to the chase, board member Harrison Wells began, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. We're hemorrhaging clients and facing potential lawsuits worth more than our entire VIP portfolio. How did this happen? Charles nodded to Carl, who stood with visible reluctance. The frameworks and strategies used to manage our VIP clients are, technically, the intellectual property of Madeline Grant. Carl's voice cracked. When she developed them, she retained creator rights under Section 6.3b of our IP Protection Clause. Which you approved, Wells pointed out coldly. Yes, it was meant to protect us from competitors poaching our talent and methods. We never imagined that an employee would use it against us, board member Sandra Liu interrupted. This is a catastrophic oversight. Ryan finally spoke, his voice desperate. We can develop new frameworks. My team is already working on alternatives. Your team, Morrison's name appeared on the conference phone he'd dialed in specifically for this meeting. Your team sent me a report that looked like it was copied from a freshman textbook. I've been with Helixon for 8 years because of Madeline's understanding of my business, not your chatbots and generic algorithms. The room fell silent. How many clients have we actually lost? Wells asked. Charles looked at his notes. As of this morning, 4 have terminated. 3 more have given notice. The remaining 5 are demanding explanations. 73 million, Liu said quietly. Gone in a week. Can we sue her? Another board member asked. Force her to release the IP. The silver-haired lawyer shook her head. She's done nothing illegal. Every document was filed properly, approved by compliance, signed off by legal. If anything, she could sue us for unauthorized use. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. She sabotaged us. This was deliberate. Prove it, the lawyer shot back. Show me one email, one document, one shred of evidence that she did anything except protect her intellectual property as allowed by the contract you signed. Ryan's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Wells leaned back in his chair, his eyes moving from Charles to Ryan. Let me understand this. You, he pointed at Ryan, took over a perfectly functioning $73 million portfolio. You dismantled the team that built it. You demoted its architect. And you didn't bother to check if you actually owned the systems you were using. The due diligence was, Ryan started. Non-existent, Wells finished. Because you assumed nepotism was enough. Because you thought being the CEO's nephew meant you didn't need to follow basic corporate protocol. Charles's face flushed. Harrison. No, Charles. We warned you about this appointment. You insisted Ryan was ready, that he'd bring fresh energy to the role. Wells's contempt was palpable. Well, congratulations. He's brought us fresh disaster. Patricia Kim's lawyer joined the call, her voice cutting through the speaker. My client wants to know why her urgent medical requests were answered by a chatbot while her portfolio manager was demoted to data entry. She's considering this a breach of fiduciary duty. The Hartley Group's representative chimed in next. The contract explicitly requires in-person quarterly reviews. You violated the terms. We're exploring our options. One by one, the client's positions became clear. They didn't just want their money back. They wanted answers. They wanted accountability. They wanted Madeline. What does she want? Lou asked quietly. Grant, what's her price? Carl pulled up his tablet. Her lawyer sent a proposal an hour ago. And she's willing to license the frameworks to Helixson for a reasonable fee. How reasonable? Charles demanded. $2 million for the IP rights, plus restoration of her original position, plus back pay for the demotion period, plus a formal apology from Mr. Ryan Mercer acknowledging her contributions. Ryan shot out of his chair. Absolutely not. I'm not apologizing to... Sit down, Wells commanded. When Ryan remained standing, Wells's voice turned to steel. Sit down, or I'll motion to have you removed from this company entirely. Ryan sat. $2 million is extortion, Charles said weakly. The silver-haired lawyer laughed bitterly. $2 million is a gift. Those frameworks are the only thing keeping $73 million from walking out the door. She could ask for 10, and you'd have to pay it. Or, Lou said thoughtfully, she could take the frameworks elsewhere. Start her own firm. Take the clients with her. The room went cold. That was the nuclear option, the one nobody wanted to speak aloud. But they all knew it was possible. The clients trusted Madeline, not Helixson. If she left and offered them an alternative... Get her on the phone, Charles said quietly. Whatever she wants, give it to her. But when Carl dialed my extension, it rang to voicemail. Because I wasn't at my desk. I was in a coffee shop 3 blocks away, having a very interesting conversation with a representative from Atlas Ventures about a new position they were creating. Executive Director of Strategic Wealth Management, full autonomy, equity participation, and the ability to bring my own client base. The board didn't know it yet, but they were already too late. The calls started coming Friday afternoon. Not from Helixson, I'd let those go to voicemail, but from the clients themselves. Morrison was first, his gravelly voice familiar even after weeks of silence. Madeline, I'll cut to the chase. Where are you going? And can I follow? I was sitting in my home office, looking out at the Denver skyline. Contract from Atlas Ventures spread across my desk. Robert, I can't discuss. Don't give me corporate speak. You know I hate it. Helixson's been a disaster since you left. That nephew of Mercer's tried to explain market dynamics to me. I've been trading since before he was born. I allowed myself a small smile. I'm exploring opportunities. Atlas Ventures. He chuckled. Patrick Kumar called me an hour ago. Smart man. Said he was building something special. Said you might be involved. Patrick Kumar, CEO of Atlas, had been very smart indeed. He hadn't just offered me a job. He'd offered me a kingdom. If you move, we follow. Morrison said simply, 8.3 million. Just need the word. The second call came from Patricia Kim. Her daughter's surgery had gone well, despite the chaos. They assigned me someone named Bradley, she said, disgust evident. He suggested I should schedule medical emergencies in advance to avoid portfolio disruption. Can you believe that? I'm so sorry. Patricia. Don't apologize. Just tell me where to send my assets. I'm done with Helixson. By Saturday morning, I had 7 direct client confirmations, $52 million ready to move on my signature. The others were waiting, watching. But the signal was clear. Where I went, they would follow. Charles Mercer called personally at 11 on Saturday night. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Madeline. His voice was tired, defeated. We need to talk. We are talking. In person, tomorrow, my office. I don't work Sundays, Charles, and technically, I don't work for you at all anymore. My resignation was submitted Friday at 5. Silence, then. You resigned. Email should be in your inbox. 2 weeks' notice, as per contract. Though given my current role in data entry, I'm sure you can manage without me. Madeline, please, we can fix this. The board is prepared to meet your terms, all of them. Even Ryan's apology. A longer silence. Ryan is no longer with the company. I sat up straighter. What? The board voted. Unanimous no confidence. He's been terminated, effective immediately. Ryan, fired. The golden boy who'd walked in 6 months ago like he owned the place, destroyed in 3 weeks. I should have felt satisfaction. But instead, I felt only cold professionalism. That's unfortunate, I said evenly. But it doesn't change my decision. The clients will follow you. It wasn't a question. The clients will make their own choices. Don't play games, Madeline. We both know what's happening. You're taking our entire VIP portfolio to Atlas. Our portfolio. Even now, he couldn't admit they were my clients, my relationships, my work. Charles, let me be very clear. I'm not taking anything. I'm accepting a position that values my contributions. If clients choose to move their assets, that's their decision. Free market. Remember that thing Ryan kept preaching about? His breathing was heavy over the phone. What do you want? Really want? Name it. I wanted respect. I wanted recognition. I wanted 5 years of building something extraordinary to matter more than someone's last name. I paused. But that window closed when Ryan threw my work on a conference table and called it paperwork. That was a mistake. No, Charles, it was a choice. Every step of this was a choice. You chose nepotism over merit. Ryan chose ego over competence. The board chose to enable it all until the money started walking away. We'll sue. Non-compete clauses. Won't hold up, and you know it. I was demoted. Constructively dismissed. Any court would side with me. Besides, you really want this playing out in public? The CEO's nephew destroying $73 million in assets through sheer incompetence. Silence stretched between us. Finally, Charles spoke, his voice barely a whisper. The board wants to know if there's any scenario where you stay. I looked at the Atlas contract. Patrick Kumar had offered me everything Helixson never would. Equity, autonomy, the title I'd earned but been denied, and most importantly, a CEO who judged on performance, not pedigree. Actually, there is one scenario, I said. Hope crept into Charles's voice. Tell me. You resign. The board cleans house. Every executive who sat in that room and watched Ryan humiliate me without saying a word gone. Complete restructuring with promotion based on merit alone. And my name on the door as senior partner. That's impossible. I founded this company. And your nephew nearly destroyed it in 3 weeks. Seems like the impossible is actually quite possible at Helixson. He hung up without another word. Monday morning, the news broke. Helixson Capital loses 52 NAs in client assets to rival Atlas Ventures. By lunch, it was $73 million. Every single VIP client had submitted transfer paperwork. The financial press had a field day. Nepotism nightmare how. One bad hire cost Helixson everything. The stock price dropped 12% by market close. Tina sent me a photo from inside Helixson. Empty offices on the executive floor. Security boxes being carried out. Carl apparently crying in the bathroom. Ryan's uncle resigned, she texted. Board accepted immediately. They're begging you to come back. But I was already sitting in my new corner office at Atlas Ventures. Windows overlooking the same mountains, but from a better angle. My clients' files were transferring smoothly. My team, my real team. The ones Ryan had scattered were getting offers from Patrick to join us. The phone rang. Morrison again. "Everything transferred?" he asked. "Processing as we speak." "Good. By the way, that nephew tried calling me. Left a voicemail about winning me back with some new revolutionary framework." "Oh." I had my assistant block the number. We shared a laugh, and then Morrison said something that made every moment of the last month worth it. "You know, Madeline, I never cared about Helixson. I cared about you. The company was just where you happened to work." That was the difference Ryan never understood. He thought the power was in the position, the title, the corner office. But real power was in the relationships, the trust, the years of 2 a.m., calls and personal attention and genuine care for people's success. And that was something you couldn't inherit, couldn't fake, and couldn't steal. That was something you had to earn. The view from the 38th floor was spectacular. 6 months after leaving Helixson, I stood on the executive balcony of Atlas Ventures, watching the sunrise paint the Rockies in shades of gold and amber. The city below was just waking up, but I'd been here since 6, the way I always was. Old habits die hard. My phone buzzed. Another notification about Helixson, which had just announced its 3rd round of layoffs. They'd lost 40% of their total assets under management, not just the VIP portfolio. Turns out when word spreads that a company will throw away its best people for nepotism, clients get nervous. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. Patrick Kumar joined me on the balcony, 2 cups of cappuccino in hand. He'd become more than a boss over these months. He was a true partner who understood that success wasn't about ego or bloodlines. It was about recognizing and nurturing talent. "Final numbers are in," he said, handing me the coffee. "All 12 VIP clients fully transitioned. Total assets under your management, $73.4 million. Point 4. We'd actually grown. Morrison wants to add another $5 million, I said, scrolling through my emails. His manufacturing expansion is ahead of schedule. Because you understood his business well enough to position him for it, Patrick smiled. That's the difference between you and people like Ryan Mercer. You see clients as partners, not account numbers. Ryan Mercer. I'd heard through the grapevine that he'd started his own boutique firm, funded by whatever remained of his trust fund. Last I checked, he was managing about $2 million in friends and family money, posting LinkedIn articles about resilience and learning from failure. He'd blocked me on all social media, but Tina kept me updated with screenshots. His latest post was about how true leaders rise from adversity. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone rang. Tina's name flashed on the screen. "You're not going to believe this," she said without preamble. "Charles Mercer just called. Personally, he wants to transfer his personal portfolio to Atlas, to you specifically." I nearly dropped my coffee. "Charles?" "As in former CEO Charles. $22 million, he said, and I quote, "I should have listened to the only person who actually knew what she was doing." I set down my cup, gripping the balcony railing. Charles Mercer, the man who'd chosen his incompetent nephew over me, now wanted me to manage his personal wealth. The ultimate admission of who had really held the power all along. "Tell him my client list is full," I said after a moment, "but I'll put him on the waiting list." Tina laughed. "Seriously?" "Actions have consequences. He can wait, just like I had to wait for recognition that never came." After ending the call, I stood there, feeling the morning sun on my face. Patrick had gone inside, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the city sprawling below. 6 months ago, Ryan Mercer had smiled that dismissive smile and tossed my work aside like it was nothing. Called it paperwork. Thought he could erase 5 years of relationship building with buzzwords and chatbots. He'd believed that power came from his last name, from his uncle's position, from the automatic authority he thought he deserved. But real power was knowing that Morrison Industries needed their reports in bullet points, because the CEO had dyslexia and processed information better that way. something he'd confided to me after 3 years of working together. Real power was understanding that Patricia Kim would never ask for flexibility, but desperately needed it. So I built it into her portfolio structure without making her request it. Real power was recognizing that the Hartley Group's insistence on in-person meetings wasn't about control, but about their founder's belief that you could only trust someone whose eyes you could see. Real power was the knowledge that couldn't be transferred in a transition document or replicated by AI or inherited through nepotism. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number, but I recognized the cadence immediately. Ryan. Congratulations on Atlas. You won. Hope you're happy. I deleted it without responding. This had never been about winning or losing. It had been about value recognizing it, respecting it, and refusing to let anyone diminish it. I took one last sip of my cappuccino, now perfect drinking temperature, and smiled that same controlled smile I'd perfected over the years. But this time, it was genuine. The city stretched out below, full of potential, full of opportunities, full of people who needed someone who actually understood them, not just their net worth. My clients were secure. My team was thriving, and my expertise was finally valued at its true worth. Ryan thought I'd just been holding data. He thought I'd just been doing paperwork. But what I'd been holding was trust. What I'd been doing was building irreplaceable human connections. And in the end, that turned out to be worth exactly $73 million. I headed inside, ready for my 9 o'clock with Morrison. He wanted to discuss expansion into sustainable manufacturing, and I had some ideas, real ideas, not buzzwords or empty frameworks, but strategies built on 5 years of understanding his business, his values, his vision. The kind of thing you couldn't fake, couldn't steal, and couldn't learn at Harvard. The kind of power that was earned, one relationship at a time. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. If you enjoyed this corporate revenge tale, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Madeline's position? Your perspectives make these stories even richer. Until next time, remember your true value can never be diminished by those who fail to see it.